Let's kick things off with the experiments that were simply chilling, and steadily descend into the ones that were truly worse than death. Number 12. Rotational therapy. Heavily utilized across the United States and Europe throughout the 18th and 19th centuries. This ranks among the absolute worst supposed cures for mental illness. Patients were strapped tightly into a chair and spun endlessly in circles. The speed varied wildly, going from a slow rotation to a staggering 100 revolutions per minute. Obviously for the person trapped in the chair, this was pure agony, but for the attendant cranking the lever, it was a fantastic bicep workout. The violent spinning induced such extreme disorientation that patients would vomit relentlessly. The lucky few would simply black out. The medical logic behind this madness? Doctors believed that triggering intense nausea and vertigo could somehow hit a reset button on the patient's mind. Number 11. Moral therapy. On the surface, moral therapy doesn't sound inherently evil. After all, it's just doling out a fitting punishment when someone breaks the rules. It was a massive trend in asylums during the 18th and 19th centuries. The fatal flaw here, though, was that asylum inmates weren't exactly great at adhering to strict guidelines. Many simply forgot the rules entirely, or lacked the mental capacity to learn from their errors. Consequently, they faced endless back-to-back punishments, which must have been super annoying for the staff, since nobody actually likes to break a sweat while on the clock. But let's look at the actual disciplinary measures. Patients endured brutal beatings. They were locked in solitary cells without food. They were put in heavy restraints, often left completely immobilized in straitjackets and chains for days on end. They were subjected to freezing water treatments, and as we just discussed, strapped into spinning chairs. The true horror of this system was the absolute lack of oversight. Asylum workers had free rein to inflict whatever twisted discipline they wanted, whenever they felt like it. Number 10. Hydrotherapy. This was another nightmarish practice embraced across Europe and the United States from the 18th right through the 20th century. There were several techniques, but let's highlight the major ones. First was the bath of surprise. Patients were instructed to walk across a wooden bridge, but midway, a hidden trapdoor would drop them straight into a freezing lake below. This was meant to shock the person so thoroughly that their mental state would reset, proving that even in the bleakest environments, people still appreciate a little slapstick comedy. Next up, dunking baths. Patients were locked inside large cages, strapped down, and repeatedly submerged into freezing water. This continued until they were visibly shivering on the brink of hypothermia, which doctors proudly took as a sign of success. Then we have the wet towel treatment. Patients were bound head to toe in freezing, soaking wet towels, and abandoned like that for hours. Finally, the long baths. People were submerged in tubs of water up to their necks for hours, or even days at a time. The guiding theory here was that water could relieve anxiety, trigger relaxation, and heal the mind. Of course, modern science tells us that only works if you actually want to take a bath. Number 9. Solitary confinement. Isolation cells were a staple of United States and European asylums throughout the 18th and 19th centuries. Patients were locked in a room entirely by themselves for hours or even days. Because many suffered from profound mental illness, they often had zero comprehension of what was happening. Overcome with sheer panic, some would hurl themselves violently against the hard walls, causing severe self-inflicted injuries. By the late 1700s, straitjackets became highly accessible, so staff started strapping patients into them before tossing them into isolation. But that didn't stop the inmates from using their bodies as battering rams against the walls, which really showed those asylum workers who was boss. Desperate to avoid looking incompetent, asylums eventually transformed these stark cells into padded rooms. This successfully cut down on physical injuries, meaning patients could now be locked away more frequently, and for much longer stretches of time. Number 8. Tranquilizing chairs. This ominous piece of furniture was highly favored in the United States from the 1700s into the early 1800s. Patients were seated and firmly strapped down across their head, chest, arms, and legs, completely paralyzing them. The chair conveniently featured a built-in bucket to catch any human waste. To top it off, a small box was placed over the patient's head to restrict their field of vision.